It's called Mighty by Sarah Clark. Heavy are the boots that tread Scotland's soil, mighty the hands that would hold us under. Our lands and dreams have long been rent asunder by the frauds of Westminster who plunder our oil. Trusting and cold are the poor of our nation, tending the bonfires that once were their lands, warmed by the flames of their own conflagration, lit in their names by the government's hands. Vast are the oceans of lies that surround us, many the voices which cry, we shall drown, but soon we shall rise with our riches around us, mightier than the hands which held us down.
This is a party no frowns allowed. Everybody moving, everybody moving.
So far we have made 1,500 phone calls, which is 75 hours of phoning. We have visited 6,000 voters, and that's taken us 500 hours. We have put the chip shops into full profit. Their turnover is up, and we've eaten about 200 fish suppers. We've been to Ling, Iona, Easdale, Mull, Lismore, Kerrera, Appin to Dalmally, and all in between. We've been laughing most of the time, and sometimes we've been told to get our bums down that drive, which made us laugh as well. We sat in croft houses in Port Ramsay eating scones, and we've all gained an average of about a stone, I would reckon. We blare Killicancry on the way out to do the canvas murder, don't we? And we meet the yes voters, which is absolutely fantastic, and they love to see us. But I think we all agree the best part of our job is when we convert an undecided. We see the light coming on in their eyes, and we know that they're going to vote yes. Thank you very much.
Gotta give it away. Someone hit the big score. You figured it out. They're gonna do it anyway, even if it doesn't pay.
Eccentric character, and one of the things that Mick did was to drink too much and then to get ideas of other stations. So he said to Cameron, there's a bit of a gap, so I think I'll just go and play the piano for them. So Cameron said, oh, that's great. So he followed Mick up to the stage whilst they were getting the next episode up, and the only thing that Mick could play on the piano was chopsticks. Anyway, the afternoon went on, and at last it was time to go. So in a fit of conscience, I said, could I have a ticket for the afternoon session, please? He said, you mean the evening session? I said, no, afternoon. He said, but it's finished. I said, I know, I've just left it. He said, well, why do you want to pay? And I said, well, I got in without paying. It was a good afternoon, so I think I should pay. And he said, oh, how very honourable. We don't meet people like you very often. And I said, oh, thank you. And he said, but tell me, how did you get in? I said, I'm not going to tell you, because I may want to do the same thing tomorrow. He said, now look, I'm not going to have this nonsense. I will not stand for it. So I said, you want my money or don't you? So I threw my money in the thing and stormed off.
Go to sleep, little baby. Go to sleep, little baby. Mama's gone away and your daddy's gonna stay. Don't need nobody but the baby. Go to sleep, little baby.
A couple of days after the last cafe session, I saw in the Herald that the dead had moved from the obituaries to the front page. An ever more desperate Better Together campaign called them deceased to tell us how to vote. The headline, or deadline, proclaimed that the recently deceased Tony Benn was against independence. Apparently it was really, really important to him. He just never get round to mention it while he's still alive. So the Herald asked his brother, I think he's alive, no sure, but his brother anyway was asked, and this is a direct quote For Tony, independence would not further the beliefs he fought for. Now I'm old enough to recall that names like Sir Anthony Wedgwood Benn and beliefs were things that he had two of. One idealistic and radical, almost revolutionary when in opposition, and another more conservative that he practised when he was actually in government. The statement continued, Tony was clear that the Labour cause was best served by staying together. And there you have it in a nutshell, the Labour cause. Nothing to do with saving the NHS or giving a nation of 5 million people the government they elect. Sod them, it doesn't help Labour. I can see where Jim Murphy gets it now. Incidentally, does anyone else find it quite strange that the Daily and Sunday Herald editions have two different stances? One's yes and one's no. Do they set their clock at 5 to 12 on a Saturday night and suddenly become rational and caring? I think they've actually been quite sneaky. They're just hedging their bets. It's all very well supporting independence on a Sunday, and no fighting well the votes on a Thursday. One thing that did amuse me was the way the staff at BBC Scotland were simply moved aside during the Commonwealth Games to let the real presenters from down south come up and do the programme. Well, what goes around comes around. If you spend 6 months on reporting Scotland, telling the world that the Scots aren't smart enough or big enough or good enough to run things by themselves, then you can't really argue when you get someone else to do your job during the games. The biggest sporting event in 50 years in Scotland, and they'd never get anywhere near it. Hoisted by their own petard is the phrase that sprung to mind. On the plus side though, with all the BBC London staff up here, the staff at Pacific Q didn't have to reach so far to kiss their backsides for a couple of weeks. It really is one of the most surreal aspects of the referendum campaign that Alistair Darling, who as you may know resigned from the Faculty of Advocates just as began to investigate his conduct for flipping his second home 3 times in 4 years. Not only that, but he put the expenses for his accountant doing it on his parliamentary bill. And all this while living free in the Grace and Favour home at 11 Downing Street. And he's lecturing us on economics and morals. Alistair Darling, you've got one hell of a brass neck. He'll tell you it's gold, but it's brass. And then we had the Let's Stay Together video. I seem to remember last month talking about one of these, but credit to Dan Snow, he's nothing if not determined. We'd hardly finished wetting ourselves at the last one when he came up with another. He's assembled another group of our betters to make us feel flattered by them asking us to stay in the UK. This time though, he was able to call on someone who had made the grave error of already giving up British nationality and was now warning us against doing the same. Step forward, Sir Cliff Richard. Now, Sir Cliff renounced his British citizenship some time ago and became a Barbadian. He's a Barbadian, he doesn't even have a British passport. And it awfully pains him deeply that he can't pay tax in this country. He doesn't want us to make the same mistake. He was in good company. Mick Jagger was in the video as well. I think it was 1969 that Mick left the country for tax reasons. He doesn't want to stay with England, apart from a holiday, but he thinks that we should. Maybe that's the solution. We could break free from the rest of the UK and go back for a fortnight every year and brag about how much we miss it. Dear old Mick, he's almost unique in being the only man to have completely lost touch with reality when he stopped taking drugs. Talking of the bewildered.
Rock the wind in the clear days dawning, blast the clouds, heals the gaudy o'er the bay. But there's been not a rock wind blowing through the great glens of the wild.
This is probably my #1 reason for voting yes. Vision of Faz Lane. Before that awful flash appears, the bright and wordless blue that follows fire will open like a parasol mid-air, then twinkle into black and disappear. Our lives will fade, bright islands left behind us. Weeks before it happen, weak and frail, stumbling to the sea, we'll find the tides and crawl into the oceans, crawl like snails. We'll all be on our knees before the fire, days before the atom splits the sky. Each day a bright desire left behind us, each hour a chance to find our place to die. Greed did this, greed and lust for power. Our tired acceptance of the lies we hear. It could be any time, a week, an hour. Vote yes to make that vision disappear.
And the clear day's dawning.
We have to empower people. It will be more important in the event of a no vote, which we are not anticipating, that people are empowered so people know where we go from here.
Through the great glens of the